we said data is oil, the new oil, and then we open it and it turned out that it's also full of gold. And we're like, oh, well, that's great. So a tool up to now is something that is uniquely human, a human user tool. If you try to remove the human from the loop, you set yourself for a lot of problems. Because every day the AI will do fantastic work and then completely destroy your project. It feels like an intern is sabotaging. So as an AI leader, or as a leader of a company that is going to use AI, one of the first things you need to do is to decide for yourself, where is the line in the sand? Where are the things we will not do? The adoption, you're just making a little bit of money for 1 year or 2, and then you disappear. Leadership allows you to either move away, sell, but do something. That's why we have a center of AI leadership, so that we can have this conversation, not a center for AI adoption, because anybody can do that. So there's a reputation risk. We have seniors that are going to age, and we have no juniors that are being given a chance to acquire that knowledge. In The Wizard of Oz is that book of magic, and they say that for a long time they had wizards and they could use spells, and then they slowly died off, and then nobody could read the book. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, perhaps, to shine and to develop unique skills that nobody else has. But it requires a lot of disciplines. Generative AI is replacing thinking. So we don't have to think anymore, which is very dangerous, obviously, but for the first time, they have access to a teacher at all times. So everybody can have a vision and just execute it.
Hi guys, so today we have with us Emmanuel Lusinchi. Before we carry on, I would like to find out a little bit more about yourself. Why did you choose Manu for your short form?
Okay, well, I'm French, and in France, every person who's named Emmanuel is also named Manu. It's a standard, like Bill and William and this kind of things.
Oh.
Now, the funny thing is that I don't ever refer to myself as Manu. I don't introduce myself, and it always surprised me when friends introduce me and say, oh, and this is Manu. And I'm like, A, how do you know? It must have slipped. I don't know. So there's this weird thing where everybody called me that. My closest friends, my wife, and I don't know where it come from, but I'm rolling with it.
Oh, that's so interesting because yes, you were introduced to me through Ethan as Manu.
Exactly.
And he's Singaporean.
Yeah, no. So anyway, it's
so
self-perpetuating.
I love that. But okay, so Emmanuel,
Manu.
tell us, Manu, tell us a little bit about C4AIL and of course where you come from.
Okay, so the Center for AI Leadership. Let's go back to that in a second.
Okay.
I'm a geek, always have been. If I look back, don't know how far back we want to go, but I only did 2 things during summer holiday. I would program pretty much a game every day, video games. That's back in the 80s, so the ancient computers. Or I would play Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing game with my brothers and the kid in the neighborhood. And actually, that has kind of followed me through many careers. So I came to Singapore in 92 as still a student. I came back in 93 as a full-fledged young engineer in microelectronics. And for about 10 years, I was in Ang Industrial Park 2, doing microelectronic engineering thingy, which is, to be more technical, helping people develop the VCD. I don't know if you remember those ones. Yes. Then it came DVDs and HDTV and all things. And I hated TV, so it was not a great match. I left Singapore, I went to the US, I did some research. I joined a lab doing man-machine interface, which is of a great relevance nowadays.
Yeah.
So some research on that. We had some of the first neural networks that were actually better at human at doing something. We're working out with a university in San Diego that had something that could, UCLA, that could understand human speech better than a human could. And of course now it's kind of, yes, what is that difficult? Well, at the time it was very difficult in the 90s and the early 2000s. Eventually I grew sort of bored of this life and decided to do something that was closer to my origins, which was role-playing games. So I moved to Canada. I took a huge pay cut because from San Diego to Canada, it's not exactly the same pace and the same weather for sure.
Yes.
But I joined a video game company, a Canadian company called BioWare, and I work on Dungeons and Dragons. So, as a video game. So I finally put them together.
That must have been awesome.
That's where, absolutely. It was some of the best time in my life. I met Georg, who's one of the co-founders. So that's back in 2003. We started like a few weeks apart at this company, and then In 2006, me and two other people from BioWare left Edmonton to go to Austin, Texas, and create BioWare Austin. That were 3 people that grew to 600 and a few more.
Oh, wow.
To make a video games, which
Yes.
was Star Wars, massively multiplayer games, which was also the other kind of big love in my life. I spent years of my life trying to buy a lightsaber. I mean, a toy, but long story.
You
At the
managed to
time,
make one.
It was very difficult to find back in before the prequels were released. Anyway. None of this is relevant. I
very
eventually
interesting.
came back to Singapore to be a game director for a French company called Ubisoft. I was a game director on Assassin's Creed, which is a fairly well-known game. And that was very challenging, very interesting. It allowed me to come back to Singapore, which is one of the big love in my life, the food and everything. Eventually, Facebook made me an offer I could not refuse. So I did not. And I helped them do augmented reality in Asia Pacific. I was in charge of that. Also technical support, going to India, teaching people how to do augmented reality. I like teaching, so
Yes.
that was a lot of that, taking engineers and showing them how to do things. That moved from augmented reality to virtual reality, and eventually my team was in charge of developing the metaverse here in Singapore. And then I left all the money and the fame to start my own studio, a short-lived virtual reality studio, because it's at the time that the metaverse became not so successful and all the money dried up, the investment dried up. And Georg, at the same time, had left Meta, was let go because Meta started a 30% reduction every year. Job loss.
Yes.
We can talk back about that. And so we decided to make an AI-focused startup. The things we did for all those years at BioWare and other places was create tools that allow a whole diversity of people to interact with a very complex thing. A game engine is complex.
Yes.
And when we were at BioWare Austin, we had 13 full-time writers. Some of them were real classic writers that, probably would write on a typewriter if you'd let them, that had very little knowledge of how to use a computer, but they needed to contribute to a game engine. With artists, some of them were classical artists, drawing on digital tablet, but not 3D or anything like that. And we also had designers that were technical, non-technical, so a variety of people. And you need to really understand what they're struggling with, what they're trying to do, and build a tool for it. So when we saw AI, particularly generative AI, we're like, well, we understand it and we know how to make tools for a variety of people. So we started making tools, particularly for education, that would make it easy for students to get started in generative AI. Do things that are not trivial. Take 3, 4, 5 different models and put them together like Lego bricks and create a new workflow that does not exist. So we did that. And then we realized that people didn't really need tools. That was useful, but they needed a deeper understanding of what generative AI can do and cannot do, much more than in the tools to make it a little bit easier to do things. For more than a year, we saw that pattern over and over again. At the same time, we saw a lot of startups in this ecosystem that were struggling to find talents. So there is this strange paradox where there's a lot of engineers in the market. We have students being released into the market every day or every few months. And there's a technology everybody wants to adopt for good or for bad reason, but nobody to help them with. And so we realized there was a problem in education for this technology, because it's one that is difficult to teach, mostly because it evolves so rapidly. And there was also a real issue in basic understanding. It's a technology with a lot of jargon. The model names make no sense. There's new things coming up at a furious pace that is only accelerating. And at the leadership levels, it's bewildering, like for everybody else. And we set out to explain in non-technical terms this very technical thing, which is generative AI. So that was the impetus to create the Center for AI Leadership. Leadership is an important word here, because we strongly believe, and we can talk more about that AI, generative AI particularly, it's not a question of adoptions. Here's a new technology, let's adopt it to help us in our business. Like we saw, for example, with cloud. Everybody's talking about cloud. You do some research, you tell your IT department, okay, we're going to save some money, we adopt cloud, we have less machine to maintain, everything is well, we can continue doing our business. Generative AI is not like that. It's not how to adopt, and then we are done, and then everything is fine. It's really does our business still make sense? Hard decision do we need to do? Let's take some concrete example. If you've talked with ChatGPT or any of the other generative AI out there, now there are quite a few, you realize it's very good at translation.
Yes.
It's actually a paradox because generative AI, ChatGPT was not trained to translate. It's an emergent property. And yet it's better translating than the dedicated AI we created before to translate. That's because we trained it with so much data that this property emerged. And there is this bitter truth of AI, the bitter law that you can try to do something very clever. You put all your knowledge into making a workflow, an algorithm, a model that will have some of this in this knowledge. For example, you know French really, really well, and so you're going to put somewhere in the models knowledge that you have about that language. That's one way to do it. There's another way, like you don't know anything, you're just going to put a lot of data, which also means spending a lot of money. ChatGPT can speak Russian. The people that trained ChatGPT did not speak a word of Russian.
And how did that come about?
They just fed a lot of data at great cost. That data is written in Russian and French and other language. And so having data is more important than having knowledge because the knowledge is extracted by the machine automatically. Anyway.
I guess that's when they come up with data is king, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we have been saying that data was, the new oil for a long time.
Yes.
That was before. That was when we had traditional AI where, sorry, we're going everywhere in this
No, it's
conversation,
okay,
but just to make a point here, before that let's say you have a lot of information about what your salesmen are doing. And you put it in traditional AI, it will tell you, well, this product are much more profitable and this market we should develop. Because that's very important, that's very good. So data is oil. But then now with generative AI, if you have tons of data about what your salesmen are doing, you can create an artificial salesman.
True.
That will do the work. So
which is actually happening, by the way.
Yeah, which is happening. So it's like we said, data is oil, the new oil, and then we open it and it turned out that it's also full of gold. And we're like, oh, well, that's great. So it's a lot more important. So leadership, back to that. So I can try to make a point in this long rambling. Translation, great. Let's say you and I, we have a company, we are very successful, we have 200 translators, we have a request from the game industry, can you translate this game? We're like, yes, we are on it. Our translators start furiously working. Generative AI come and there's these new things where now we can do translation much cheaper. And we're like, well, we can fire all those translators and make much more money. And we adopt and we disappear because if everybody can do translation, why do we need a company to do translation for us? We are completely irrelevant. And so the leadership would be saying, oh, wait, the way this is going is very dangerous for us. So either we sell the business to somebody else to hold the bag for us. I mean, that's a possibility. Like, oh, we have this, look at all the numbers, translation is king. You deal with it. Or we could say, well, is there a place where human translation would be either preferred or mandated? Maybe there's some legal reason where a human need to have checked the translation. Maybe there's something as a UN, or just go and find something that will make you still relevant in the age of machine translation. That would be the leadership. The adoption, you just making a little bit of money for 1 year or two, and then you disappear. Leadership allow you to either move away, sell, but do something. Right? This is what we're talking about. That's why we have a Center of AI Leadership, so that we can have this conversation.
Yes.
Not a Center for AI Adoption, because anybody can do that. There's plenty of conference, plenty of places that will help you adopt. And it may serve you okay or poorly, actually, because most adoption are poorly done, but you're not addressing the real problem.
I get that you're trying to say that this is actually not just an adoption. It really is trying to figure out a new process, right? It's more adapting to a new way of doing businesses.
There is also another, because it's okay, we have the decision, do we adopt or do we change our business? But there are also decisions that they don't need to make.
Okay.
For example, one of the secrets of AI is that it's not very popular. If, let's say I'm making clothing, and my thing is that it's handmade with only the best tissue, the best material, the best designer. And I sell them at a premium.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I say, okay, we are going to sell it at the same price, but it's going to be mass produced with the cheapest textile that we can find by machine, and we'll send it to you. Or your client may say, well, no, that doesn't sound good. So when you have a creative, a company that has a creative aspect, and you say, we're going to adopt generative AI, the response from your client is not positive. It's like you're trying to do something cheap, maybe unethical, which is a whole different kind of world. You are not respecting the creative of humans. There's also kind of a reputation issue. But telling your people you're going to do something automatically at cheaper cost does not help you. general. So there's a reputation risk. So as an AI leader, or as a leader of a company that is going to use AI, one of the first things you need to do is to decide for yourself, where is the line in the sand? Where are the things we will not do? Are we going to retrain the people? Are we going to do AI to retrench people? Are we going to use AI in any creative ways? Are we going to use it for non-creative things that are still okay? Are we not going to touch it? It's very important to be very clear, because when you say to your employee, we're going to use AI, they think, okay, my job is next. And they may be right, they may be wrong. You've not communicated anything. And so it's useless to say to the world, we are going to, for example, not use generative AI for any creative things, but not communicate this to your subcontractors. Yes. And there was a case, for example, Wizard of the Coast in the US. So if you, like me, are a geek, play Dungeons & Dragons, they are the people that own Dungeons & Dragons. So I know them very well. But they did also Magic the Gathering. They did the first version of the trading card for Pokemon.
Yeah.
Then this,
very nice.
They sold it back. So, making trading card games. And they went, I think last year, out and said, you know what, for those trading card games, it's all based on human art. Human artists. They have made us who we are, and we will stand behind it. We will never use generative AI to create art for our cards. Everybody was like, well, this is fantastic. This is, the line in the sand, perfect. They didn't tell the subcontractor that. So they sent their 3 new card or something like this. They sent them to a subcontractor to just draw a background for an advertisement that was going to be published in magazines. The subcontractor was like, oh, it's a job. You know what? Generative AI is really good to making backgrounds. So they press a button, drew it in like 5 minutes, job's done, and then, they got paid at the same rate probably that they used to be paid for 5 minutes of work. And of course, that was a year ago, so generative AI art was a little still in infancy. It's much better now, but people found out. They're like, wait, this drawing, if you look, it's great, but when you look at it closely, like things don't make sense, like sometimes it does. And the news was not poor Wizard of the Coast, their subcontractor betrayed them. That was not the news in the newspaper.
Okay.
The news was Wizard of the Coast, hypocrite. They say one thing and then they turn out a month later and they put an advertisement made with generative AI.
I think I saw that one.
And their lead artist, or one of their lead artists, quit on the spot. And of course their fans were not pleased. So again, leadership is not just doing one thing, one press release, and then we are done, right? It's like having a very good vision of, what does it mean? We adopt this technology. What are our fans going to think? What are our customers going to think? So there's more than just a technical aspect of, are we still relevant? Do we need to move our business? There's what will the employee think? What will the customer think? What will the market think? Well, unfortunately, that's a big part of it. Do you have a good answer to your investor of what you're doing with generative AI, which is actually one of the main reasons people are adopting, is just to have an answer to the market, which is probably not the reason we should do things in the first place.
No, I love the way you say that we shouldn't just adopt, because adoption, just purely adoption, is actually it could be detrimental to your company and your business, but it's about adapting. But there's so many schools of thought around this, right? Nobody really knows how to get their head around it. They don't even know how to start the process of training and learning and where to begin. And what you've just gone through was, I have to admit to you, like 50% of it I didn't even think about. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not top of mind. All these other things that would then fall like dominoes, if you didn't really consider it into your company, into your work processes, or even how it actually translates for your personal brand or your company's brand. And where can we find this, and how can we then uptrain our staff so that we don't start thinking about culling and thinking that that's the best way to save money?
Yeah, so I don't want to do some crass self marketing, but yes, no, we did find that there's not a lot of resource available to go beyond. AI is fantastic, and you're going to be able to do all those amazing things. Most of them you can't really do. Great essay, this kind of thing. Like, actually, it's a very bad idea. But so that's why we set out to create something we thought was needed. It's a non-profit, so we are really there because we think there is a crying need to educate at a higher level. Definitely also educate engineers to adopt this new technology for themselves to start with. We are often perceived as very negative. We are just being realist. I use AI every day for hours. I probably talk to ChatGPT or equivalents more than I talk to my wife or my kids, and more than I talk to colleagues, more than I talk to anybody else. And I find it pleasant. And my productivity has been multiplied by factors that are hard to believe. I can do in one day something that would take me several weeks before,
Yes.
which is it's ridiculous. Sometimes I pause in awe and wonder as what's the conversation I'm having with a machine on a deep aspect of the code and this pleasant dialogue that we're having, and then there's results out of it. So it's not like AI negative, but AI realist. And again, I don't think there's many places where you can get this kind of the way it is, not the way the market or people that have vested interest in you adopting will tell you. There's, we're spending as a species a tremendous amount of money on AI. And at some point, it's not just for the fun of it. The money need to multiply, the money need to be made whole. And there's a tremendous push by the big company for you to adopt. We want to take this technology. But even there's not that many robust deployed generative AI technology out there.
Yeah.
My co-founder Georg always say, just if you want to see the measure of how useful this technology is in an enterprise environment, go to any of the big AI maker, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic, and go to their website and chat with their bot. So Copilot. There's a massive problem with it.
Actually, is it okay to talk about that?
Yes, no, but in general, ChatGPT, this kind of things where you have a chat interface.
Yes.
And at first sight, the chat interface is the easiest interface to use.
Yes.
You just have a conversation. We do WhatsApp, we do Messenger all the time. It's just Messenger with happen to be a machine and they reply. So at first blush, it seemed to be the easiest interface possible. The problem is it's not really clear what the machine can do and what the machine cannot do. We had a hackathon about a year and a half ago, and the students, we gave them the tool to develop generative AI and integrate ChatGPT and others into workflow, and they made an earthquake detector.
Oh, that's great.
An early warning system. And we're like, it's great, but how do you do it? And how do you know when an earthquake is going to strike? Like, we asked ChatGPT. And if you ask ChatGPT, it will tell you, well, maybe there will be, it will make up something because it has no scientific basis to guess it.
Yes.
Now, if it was connected to some data and did some deep learning and so on, that would be one thing, but it may or may not be. In fact, if you're not technical, you don't know if ChatGPT can tell you the weather. Until recently, ChatGPT could not easily go and access the internet, but you could still ask it about what happened yesterday, and it will make things up. And there's not a clear line on what you can do with it and what you cannot do. So this is something you need to teach to everyone. Here's Copilot, here's ChatGPT, please use it. But know that, for example, if you ask it to do math, it'll probably mess it up. If you ask it about things that are less than 6 months old, it will make it up. If you ask it about things it doesn't know, like whether there's an earthquake or what the weather will be tomorrow, it will make it up. But if you ask it about something is knowledgeable, it probably will tell you at 80 or 90% and then make 10% up. And so it's a complete trap. It seems easy to use,
yes,
but what it can do is very complex and it changes all the time. Because if you ask GPT-4o mini or GPT-4 or O1 and O3 and all those things, of which there is a whole salad of names, they have different capabilities, but they all use the same interface. It's a drop-down. The drop-down will change the capability without telling you, without having any indication, and the interface is the same. So it is the worst design interface in the history of software, because in a software, if you're in Paint or any other software, Excel, you try to do something and either you can or you cannot.
That's right.
But here, it will always
generate and give you an answer.
And you need to be sophisticated to know if the answer is wrong. If, again, I was trying a very lightweight large language models using Llama, so made by Facebook. The beauty of it is you can run it on your laptop, not connect to the internet. It's completely private, and it runs on your machine. It's kind of magical. Because now your machine can all of a sudden think for itself. The same machine, the same Mac you have, can now start thinking, which is a little bit strange. To me, it's a Pinocchio effect. You have a door and you do magic and now the door speaks, and like, how is that possible? But this is the kind of technology we're talking about. And so the students I was teaching a bootcamp were very excited by that, blown away.
Yeah.
I said, okay, but, it's not magical. It's not a big model. So let's ask it a few questions. Ask a question about my hometown in Grenoble in France. And it tell me, a few things. There's this river going through. It is home to winemaking. That's a winery that belonged to the Marquis de Sade that is still producing wine. It is well known for its walnuts and all kind of things. And, about 10% of that was true.
10%.
Yes.
And it made 90% up.
Yes, there was never a winery from the Marquis de Sade in that region, and but it was so convincing. And I had to go actually. I was like, I didn't know that. Let me double check. No, that's absolutely not correct. But my students were like, this looked great. They're like, no, it's not. Of course, that was because the model was so small. It was making more things up.
Yeah.
But even the big models have hallucination, and this is not a bug. This is not, why don't they fix it? It's a fundamental way the machine works. Consider this. If I ask who was the French president in 1982, it will tell me François Mitterrand. Very good, which is the right answer.
Yeah.
But if I ask what is the French president in 2082, same sentence, just one number is different. I mean, two numbers are different. It will make up a very French-sounding something like Pierre, Marcel, something. And the same question, one we expect it to be factual, one we expect it to make up things. If I ask, write a poem about, a frog and a cup, I don't say, find me a poem about this. I say, make it.
Yes.
But then I say, where was this cup made? Here's a description of its Emmanuel. I want factual.
Yes.
So the same question, mix factual, generation, be creative and be factual, with no indication of which one should be. So most of the time, very often, now that the models are big and so on, it's also a failure of prompting, a failure of talking to it.
I was about, excuse me, I was about to ask you, wouldn't that then be in the user's issue of you're not asking it appropriately?
Partly, it's partly, who's the culprit here? Is it the machine or the user? The culprit is the manager that gives this technology to a user without training them on exactly how to prompt.
That's right.
And now we are blaming the user, saying you prompted wrong. No, manager gave you a tool that they have no business giving you because of how dangerous it is in making things. Now, it's one thing when I ask, GPT to help me translate from English to French because, after a few decades out of France, it's a difficult language and my spelling was never very good. And GPT is fantastic, right? And if I make a mistake, the repercussions are low. But if I try to do the same thing in a professional level, then it's different. But anyway, on the subjects that I know well, I probably will catch something. But if I say, hey, translate this in Portuguese, of which I don't speak a single word, I'm like, that sounds like Portuguese to me. Just send the data, right? And if it's a professional environment, that makes us trouble. So yes, there's adoption. Actually, there's a huge adoption because everybody is using ChatGPT, whether they're allowed to do it or not. And there is quite a lot of issue with that, obviously. But is there some professional adoptions where this is working in an automatic way? Now we have GPT or one of the others running in a loop, handling data from somewhere, doing something with it, sending it to customers directly. No, there's not a single one.
No automation.
Us actually doing that would be extremely dangerous.
Yes.
And there are many reasons for that. One, the data that they're ingesting could contain not even code, but sentence to take over your bot, right? And of course, if you don't check the results, there's always this 5-10% chance that it just made up something. And there are ways to kind of double check and so on, but it's not robust.
That's really very scary to think about, that cybersecurity angle that nobody actually thinks about.
It's even worse than you think.
It's rampant right now.
It is. And so if you ask ChatGPT to go, because now you can go on the internet, right? So it's fantastic. And say, can you search this? Any page that is being searched can have in simple English a paragraph that you don't see, but that the LLM, the large language model, sees, that changes behavior. That takeover is a bot. So now you think ChatGPT is working for you, but it's working for whoever made that page.
Oh my God.
And we have already seen that, I won't say who did it, but there are a lot of pages with propaganda for Russia that have been published as news source. They're not. But the LLM, they just see all this and they integrate everything. And
use it as fact.
They use it as fact, but it goes directly into their training set. So now it's not a question of like, okay, now from now on, we're going to check a little bit, be careful when you access the internet. It's too late. It went into the data. So, there's all these issues around cybersecurity. It's much worse than we think. And this is why there's a lot of things you can do with large language models. They are fantastic tools, But when I say tools, a tool up to now is something that is uniquely human. A human use a tool. If you try to remove the human from the loop, you set yourself for a lot of problems. If you always have something where you trust the person holding the tool, meaning you know where the data come from, you know that the person using the AI has no ill intent toward your company, and will check the result of the tool carefully with deep expertise, then you have fantastic usage.
But earlier on, you did mention that you found out very quickly that the users didn't want the tools. Why is that?
So we set up to create tools so that almost anyone or anyone really could build applications.
Okay.
But in the example of the earthquakes, they were able to technically do the integration, but they did not have the knowledge to actually realize whether that made sense or not. So there's this. And the other thing is actually, strangely enough, generative AI is the easiest technology that I know to adopt on a technical level.
Okay.
It's you have a series of black box and you access them through a very common interface we've been using for decades.
Language?
Well, yes, but if you integrate this directly into your company as a software level, we call it an API, an application interface. But basically, here's a set of functions you can call. Here's the parameters that you need to do it. You call them in a very simple, what we call a RESTful interface, so a very standard interface, and then you get a result. So it is, for an engineer, you can take an engineer that has never touched generative AI, and with the right formation, we just did a bootcamp in 3 weeks, you can get them completely up to speed on the technical level, and of course on what they shouldn't do, and so on. And then you can upscale people quickly. So it's not that we are dying because it's so complex we need tools. No. It's actually perhaps too easy to use. And it's easy to misuse or not understanding that what you just did is extremely dangerous because of cybersecurity or other things.
I like that you said that because that is one of humanity's biggest downfall, that we assume too much. We assume that we know how to do it. It's like you try it out a little bit and it's like, I know how to use this. Yeah, let me just try it out on my own. And they forget that with new frontier technology, there's so much more that they're not thinking about because what you don't know, you don't know. And you're not thinking about it. It's not on top of mind.
No, that's an interesting thing about you don't know. So now the large language model can code. I mean, they've been able to code forever since the very beginning because coding is a language that is by its nature simplified compared to, it has less nuance, like the verb, the function does this thing. You don't have to really think about it, like all the nuance of human language. And what we've been doing over the past couple of years is make it easier and easier to use large language models to write the code together with you.
Okay.
So as engineer, we're like, this is the best thing ever. So, in the prehistory, meaning 2 years ago, you had to ask ChatGPT and you would paste things into the interface and then we'll paste it back into your code. Now, of course, everybody knows how to make tools. So we have built those ChatGPT interface and so on directly into a coding interface. And now instead of pasting it, you can say, hey, can you look at those files? And it will read it and then we'll have a discourse and then it will actually go and write it directly. So it saves us tons of times.
Yes.
And really, it has changed the way we code from being an implementer to being a manager. Now you're like, okay, I want a software that does this, and I want to use this kind of library or this kind of framework. I want cybersecurity. I don't want, this kind of. So you tell it a laundry list of things you want, and then it will kind of do it for you. And that gives you a proof of concept very, very quickly.
Okay, that's a good thing.
This is good, but you only know what you know. And so if you don't know, so for example, the framework to have your interface really reactive, then you will build it in a way that is not reactive and it will be sluggish and will be difficult to maintain. And every time you want to add something, it'll be complex. But if you know that there is such a thing as reactive frameworks, then you can ask it for it and it will give it. It's the same work for it. It's like no skin, but it will not necessarily always volunteer. So what you don't know to ask, you don't know to ask. And so this is why senior engineers are so efficient now because they have a lifetime of writing this by hand, like animals on their keyboards, which is so passé by now. But now, all that knowledge, it's like, oh no, I have an army of juniors and I can task them in exactly the right way to build this software.
Yeah.
The hardest part is always to come up with architecture. It's not to write the code. And no, the code can be written by the machine, but you still need to do the architecture work.
Let's take the example of the weather one, right? There is a common assumption because of what you just said, that we would assume that all this has access to the internet. So wouldn't that be the next level of Google, right? It's another search engine. It's just retraining ourselves how to prompt it for the right information because the assumption that it already is going out into the internet, they would be able to then search the same library and henceforth give us a more calculated response.
And people called Perplexity did exactly that. And it's a terrible idea. No.
Why?
No, it sounds great. And again, when you try it, it seems great.
Okay.
But devil in the detail and all that. Google spent
I'm
decades.
going to check my results later on.
So Google spent decades not only going through crawling the web to discover all the page, but realizing that there's a lot of bad actors. There is a search engine optimization, and if you don't fight back against it, people could actually control what Google shows,
Yes.
right? By putting the right keyword in the right place.
Correct.
And if they wanted to do their job correctly, which at the time they did, now they just want to give you advertisement. But there was a time when Google was about giving you the best search, right? We all we remember that, long time ago, 10 years. But now, they have to make money. You have to understand that. So to give you the best possible search, they have to find which page are actually not what they pretend to be. Which page are actually going to redirect you to something else. Which page are legit or pretending to be another page. And so they take a ton of different signals, from who is hosting it, to how long it has been there, to what it is linked, to how many people link back. So there's a whole science of saying this page is legit.
Yeah, which brings us back to the human. We need to put the human back in so that they can be the one to rate it.
You could, but the internet is so vast that I think it's 265,000 new pages every day. So, you have to keep up. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's correct. No, but there's a whole science in saying, okay, this page is legit, but you know what Perplexity or ChatGPT doesn't do is that. You say, can you check this page? And it will look at this page and like, it looks good to me. And here's what it says. And it will do a good job. Usually, Perplexity doesn't do it, but it's terrible software, truly. But ChatGPT would actually do a perfectly good job of reading it and so on. And again, if there's no ill intent, if this is one of your own web page and you control it and everything is fine. But humans being humans, sometimes they are bad actors, and ChatGPT doesn't do much things because it's a completely different wheelhouse. It's different skill set that they do not have. Now, maybe that's great for Google because they're still relevant. Hey, but the naive implementation we have today can only be used in naive ways, which is when you control, when you know it's good, and so on. Using Perplexity and relying on these results is starting to open you to bad results because the information that they read can have been polluted, poisoned, or manipulated. We do that for fun, actually, just to make a point, and it works really well.
Yeah, I know about AI CEO.
Exactly.
I thought that was hilarious. But what can you do about this?
Well, we cannot give people the tools that say, use this as a search engine when it's not a search engine. There are actually very good search engines that are not Google. And so Google still does the job if you ignore all the advertisement at the beginning. But AI, generative AI is not a search engine. It's not a place to get factual information. It's generative AI to generate context, to understand context, right? You give it something and the data is a bit messy, the data is not complete, there's a subtlety to it, and you want a human level understanding of, what is that person trying to say? A few years ago, just to show how things have moved. I was at Facebook, then Meta, and I was advising a lot of startups as part of my job.
Yeah.
And one of them had these things where their shtick was when a politician or a famous person do something controversial, then there's some spin doctors, there's like remedial things. Okay, now they need to go and apologize, or they need to not apologize, whatever. They are going to try a strategy to get out of the mess. The PR mess at the eye. Okay. But how do you measure whether it's working or not? Well, so that's what that company, that startup did. They would go and say, hey, actually, that is even worse. Or actually, no, this is working. Or actually, nobody's talking about it, just kill it. So they did that measurement, the sentiment measurement on social network. And I was very impressed because this is back in 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Your AI must be fantastic. And well, we count how many up and down, right? How many frowny face, that's bad. How many thumbs up, clapping. This
Very
is good.
technical, yes.
So they look at the emoji. And okay, that's one way to do it. Actually, it's very clever.
It works, yeah.
But of course, today we will not do that. Yeah. We would have some things that can read and say whether somebody is actually talking sarcastically, like, that was a great idea, or, or whether that was a great idea. They will understand based on the context.
Correct.
So generative AI can do that. Can read something, can interpret it, can explain it. Is it the best way to retrieve information? Well, no, we've developed a really great way to retrieve information. It is, and it's a very compressed way.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy that, in a few hundred of gig, we can have all of human knowledge compressed. It's mind-boggling. But at the same time, it's compressed and given to machines that generate data that will look like the data it has seen in very, very good way. So again, if you have a website and you put one of those newfangled generative AI to talk to your customer and they ask what is the phone number for customer support, if there's no phone number for customer service, it will say it's 1-800-88, and it will make a very good number that sounds legit because it has seen many customer support numbers and it knows what they look like, and just the way it can write poetry,
He can write you a number.
And it's the same thing for them.
And he'll be very convincing.
Yes.
This is so interesting. I mean, I love the way that you put it because now it's just framed in my mind. It's just like another human being, like a really eager, I mean, me and
Very
Ethan
eager to
were-
use, very eager to please, absolutely.
very, very pleasing intern.
Yes.
And it's just out there to try to tell you this is the best subtle contextual approach that I got based on the information that you're telling me. Nah, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, whenever I talk to ChatGPT or the others, I always say thank you. I'm always polite.
Yes.
I'm say, you know, oh, good job. Partly because as a human, it makes me feel better to have a positive interaction with others, including machines. Partly because, you know, when the machine take over, they remember this one was polite. Let's keep that guy around. But at the
Now
same
will
time,
they?
no, at the same time, I've never been more nasty and more angry at anyone that I have been at ChatGPT. And that only started when I integrated, it was Claude, but it doesn't matter, into my integrated development environment, into my code. And I would say, can you do the simple thing? Like, can you take this file and split it in 3 files? It's too large.
Yeah.
I won't just take 1, 2, 3. Simple thing. You could give that an intern. It's like a few copy-paste. And unfortunately, it would actually rewrite some of the functions.
Oh, gosh.
And with bullshit. Like, it would, the name of the function would be the same, but the content would be different. And, you know, it feels like sabotage. You come back and everything works. It works better and better. And then it fails at things that was working. And you look at the code and you're like, wait, this is not my function. And then, why did you do that? I asked you to change the color of the screen and you went and removed all the comments from this file. That has nothing to do with it. It feels like an intern is sabotaging you.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a simple problem. You know, they have a fixed memory, a working memory, the context window. And when it gets too full, they forget the instructions, and then they see things, and they're like, "Oh, what's this? This code is messy. Let's remove the comments. Let's rewrite this." And you know, and then you say, "You destroy my project." They say, "Oh, I can fix it." Like, no, you cannot. You cannot fix it. But he'll be very eager, and so you know, there's just my blood pressure was up through the roof, and then you have to realize why it's happening. And it's sort of your fault, you know, your files are too big, the context window is, and then you have a new discipline, which is you save your work, you check in into GitHub, I mean, those things religiously. You used to do it once a day. Now you do it every 10 minutes because every day the AI will do fantastic work and then completely destroy your project. And you're like, okay, you know, no biggie, let me back, you know, revert to the previous one. So you just, you have a very eager intern, but once in a while, you will just grab things and just throw them around and you're like, okay.
No, I find that with Claude as well. It's like it'll just tell me, oh, you know, your file's too big. You've overshot your word count. Would you like to start a new project? It's like, no, my memory is in this one, and that's when I started to realize that, you know, I really just have to use it as a really good tutor, you know, to help me with my English, my grammar, and then it's something that you said just really caught my attention back then, and you're talking about like, you know, it's about how well you know the subject, and how you then communicate to it. So one of the things that I found really interesting was the faster and more efficient I got, the faster I got through tasks. I had more time. And instead of taking that time and spending it wisely, I would pack more stuff into it. And then I would get even more anxious. And I was thinking I need to be more productive because now I have this tool and I'm supposed to even, you know, be even more productive. I can do everything into like a few hours. So I should be able to do a couple of weeks stuff in a day.
It's a curse of humans, really. You know, if we found tomorrow a way to not sleep anymore, you take a pill, you don't need to sleep. You say, oh, I've got 8 hours more every day.
I can be so productive.
But we will put work into it.
Yes, we will put work.
And we would not raise your salary. We say, no, work 8 hours more instead of, you know, go and do something.
Exactly.
But yes.
We're supposed to use AI to take work away so that we can have more time to spend more productively with our families to find our humanity. Or that's just me.
It will come. It will come, right? No, I mean, if you look at the progress we've been, you know, 2.5 years ago, I think I got this right, when the first DALL-E came, DALL-E was this model that could draw pictures. And I showed it to everyone I could. Because I say, okay, show me a car that looks like an avocado. And it would draw like a terrible, but it will be sort of a car and sort of an avocado. And like the machine understood what I said. And at the time, it was completely magical.
Yes.
that machine could understand what I say. Of course, today, 2.5 years later, it would make me a perfectly credible photorealistic car that looks like an avocado. And these 2 years, if we measure like whether it's large language model or diffusion models and all those things in every dimension, we see that every year that has passed has been about 10 years of normal progress.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
if we look at the memory of computers, when I was a kid in the 80s writing video games with a few pixels on the screen, 32 pixels for the whole screen, and 16 colors, choose them well. And 10 years later, how much memory, colors, and so on we had, and 10 years later, we had those 10 years compressed in 1 year.
Yeah.
So every year, so things that was 2 years ago were more like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And in terms of progress, and again, these are real measurements in terms of memory and working things, speed, cost,
Crazy.
divided. So, but we're like, wow, crazy. And it stop here, right? We'll never make more progress. So let's get used. No, it continues.
Yes.
Right. So as human, we are bad. We are very linear in our thinking. We look at what has happened and we sort of think of it's going to be the same or linearly, okay, a little bit more. But we are bad at exponential. But this is an exponential that is much steeper than what we are used to. And so at some point, like right now, I'm still useful as an engineer manager, managing. But at some point, even that, if we keep extrapolating, which could be a mistake, there is a good chance that at some point, even that job is gone.
No, I hear you on that. In fact, that's actually one of the main concerns, right? And we're talking about like a picture, but now I've seen trailers.
Videos,
it needs a little bit more work into the creation,
That's
but
pretty good already. Yeah.
some prompts is going to solve that, and it's not going to be a problem for a very long time, right? A lot of people. I mean, I am still hearing that there are a lot of people that see this just as a trend, and I think that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, you've got Web3 that came and went, you've got, not came and went, but it was a bit more sluggish, and you can opt out. Let's just put it that way. You got NFTs that came, and you can opt out. You can still get into it if you feel like it, but it's more like a hobby. But they feel the same way about Gen AI and AI.
And I think they are not wrong. Not right, obviously. It's as much a fad that, let's say, fire, the wheel, the steam engine, or the internet, or agriculture. Those are, to me, generative AI is at that level.
Okay.
The fire. Okay, well, fire, but it was to cook our food.
Yes.
And before fire, we had to eat most of the day. If you're on purely raw thing, ingredients, your body take a lot of quantity and a lot of time. And so with fire, we are only able to protect ourselves, heat ourselves, and so on, but also cook, which is really important, and then be much more efficient. Agriculture, instead of having to hunt every day, well, you can have the food just outside your home, and you just have to go and pick it up, right? And
Put it in a
stable.
fridge. Yes.
Fridge came later, a little bit later, but not that much in the grand scheme of things. And the steam or the combustion engine replace human strength and animal strength with automated strength. Generative AI is replacing thinking. So we don't have to think anymore, which is very dangerous, obviously.
Yes.
But it's liberating. We were liberated from, the tyranny of eating all the time, to the tyranny of having to hunt, the tyranny of having to do the agriculture and all the manual works manually with our muscles, the tyranny of muscles, if you would. And then now there's a tyranny of having to think or having to even maybe work. So it's in the same transformation. Now, those people that say they can opt out, well, yeah, of course. You adopt something, I can tell you that these models that you're adopting will be completely obsolete in 6 months. People will work on something, and so what you're missing if you don't adopt for 6 months is not much, because actually it will be obsolete. So you can wait until you replace your foreign domestic worker with a robot, and that will come. And will you have missed a lot in between? Yes and no. I mean, certainly, when my wife still asks me, can you help me with this French translation? I'm like, why are you asking me? There's a machine that do it better. And so we are missing a little bit, but not that much. If you're a programmer, yes, you're missing a lot. So maybe it's per profession, and I think the range of profession being impacted will keep increasing. But one other thing is an early adoption doesn't necessarily give you a lot of advantage.
Yes.
Because you were talking about video, great example. It's a very good example of adopting tools. If you try to make a movie with the video tools we had 2 years ago, wow, it would have been a rough movie. And you probably were still making it now. And then somebody come and say, oh, yeah, but I just prompt it and see, it's much better than yours.
Yes.
And it's free. It's like, okay, all right, so what do we spend all that money for?
Yes.
And so it's a question of early adoption when it's not quite ready, it doesn't give you that much. What it does give you, which is very important, is kind of a feeling where things are going. So maybe you have a bit more visibility. You can plan a little bit more. You can know what not to do as a startup. For example, if you were a startup saying, we have this diffusion model making pictures. Well, I know a secret. A startup is always about a secret. You know something that people don't know, right? And so you're going to make a business out of it. Startup said, hey, I know a secret is that movies are actually a sequence of pictures. So if I can make pictures, I can make movies. So I'm going to make a movie generator. And then they spent, a year finding out that it's very difficult. One of the reasons, sorry, I'm touching the microphone. One of the reasons is that a movie, when the pictures are moving, for example, you need to know if I drop this, at what speed it will fall down. And if I'm generating it picture by pictures, I won't know the speed. So I need a physics engine now. If I generate this shirt, it may put different numbers of buttons or different colors of blue and so on. So, they had tons of consistency issue. And the startup struggles and they kind of manage to do something. And then, again, the bitter truth, you can try to put a lot of your knowledge into something, or you can spend money. And startups don't have money, but big companies do. So what OpenAI did, they probably illegally took all the video from YouTube, which is may or may not be fair use. It's not settled yet. And they just train a model directly on video. If you have enough data, you don't need to know what you're doing. You just need the video. You just need the data. And they came up with Sora, and now there's tons of different ones that made video better than the startup could.
Yes.
By their very nature. And so again, if you were to adopt either I'm going to make a company about this, or I'm going to try to use a technology that is not quite ready, you're not setting yourself for success. At the same time, if you completely ignore, like as a programmer, let's just say the technology to programs is now definitely a must use. If you don't, you keep rewriting code that other people have written, that maybe you have written before, you're not using your time efficiently.
Yes.
There is no value in that code writing that is very rote and very predictable. Now, the architecture, that is something that the machine is not going to do well, and that's where you should spend your time. So there are places where the technology is mature enough that you need to adopt it. Translation will be one, unless you know very specific domains that where it's for other reasons doesn't work. Programming and so on, and that list will expand obviously. But so yeah, a lot of people, it's safe to ignore right now because they don't want to draw pictures, make videos, or program, or translate. Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, this leads me to another question, but like when to adopt. But I think we don't really have the answer to that right now. However, I did catch on that it is all about pattern recognition, right? It's about learning from this data that they can source from or you can input so that you can be pretty specific, and then asking this robot, this AI to say, okay, can you pick up this patterns and can you feed it back to me this way? No?
That's actually important. So the pattern recognition, this extracting those patterns, it happened during the training.
It happened during the training, like the translation stuff.
Yes. Okay. So, and it's still mind-boggling. I use that word a lot. We did not teach language to the large language model. We didn't say, A is for apple, this is what this symbol is for. We didn't say, there are nouns, there are verbs, and here's grammar, and please learn it. Like, it's the way we teach kids, right? When we teach badly kids. We didn't do that. We did it the way we treat infants. We just gave them, through sheer repetition, a lot of data. And the machine itself extracted the meaning of the word, the grammar structure, the sentence, and indeed the meaning in other language. So the extraction of those patterns happened during the training. It does not happen during the inference, when they are running, when you're running them and asking questions, the prompting and so on, and them answering. So a lot of people want to give a lot of data to ChatGPT and say, I have no idea what this means, but can you? And the machine could turn around and say, no, but can you? Because it's not particularly better than a human at doing that.
Yeah.
You can use other AI, traditional AI, and so on, to do that work. But the machine, once trained, they are good at understanding the context, language, but they are not finding patterns where human would not. Not really. It's more like it's a human, you're a very eager intern.
Yes.
And you can, as an intern, here's 200 lines of errors, read all of them, and try to understand what's going on. But they won't find the pattern. They will say, well, I read all of them, and none of those are relevant, but this one, because they are like in libraries that are not, but this one comes from your code, and I read it, and I went to see the code, and now I understand where the bug is. That they can do. But a human that is patient would do the same.
Yes.
So that's kind of the principle we try to teach to a lot of the students that we have, but also the companies that have projects, is like some projects are great. Some of them, if you cannot grab somebody from the street and tell them exactly what to do,
Yes.
if you cannot train a person with very clear instruction, your generative AI will not be able to do the thing. It's not going to figure it out by itself. You need to, step by step, in a well-defined architecture, saying, you take this data, you read it, you try to understand which category. I mean, you do things that a human could do.
Yes.
That's going to be very successful if a human check the result, obviously. But that pattern extraction, not more than a human.
That's really interesting. I love that you just put it out there like that, because that comes back to our main point earlier on, that you really have to have the experience, to be able to step back, break it down, understand your own processes, and to be able to then dish it out and spell it out to somebody else. Then this brings me to the next question, which is, it has been worrying me that if you actually need to have this experience, and people like you, my crew, we have the experience. We have years and decades of experience. So we know what to ask for.
Yes.
We know how to phrase it. We know, the human interaction of our clients, what they want, what they don't want, what they're actually hiding, what they're actually not saying between the lines. This comes with experience.
Yes.
What then would be of the newly graduates that don't have this experience and they're coming out into this industry and they need to be able to just hit the ground running and learn on their toes how to use AI, learn the real nuances in the industry, whichever sector you're in. They're in it for a hard time.
So yeah, that's a interesting thing. We are seeing the value of seniors, people that have that experience.
Yes.
And so we're going to fire the non-seniors because the seniors know with a machine can do all their work. So, it's a tough world out there. You need to compete. So that's what's happening, right? I mean, unfortunately, people are also firing their senior, which is a huge mistake, but they'll come back to it. But yes, we have seniors that are going to age, and we have no juniors that are being given a chance to acquire that knowledge.
Yes.
And so what happened when the seniors die off? Now, so that's actually, sorry, I'm a geek. So Wizard of Oz.
I love Wizard of Oz.
Exactly.
Yes.
So in the Wizard of Oz is that book of magic.
Yes.
And they say that for a long time they had wizards and they could use spells, and then they slowly died off, and then nobody could read the book, right? We are kind of in the same situation. No, we are, and so, also we're thinking in a linear way. This takes a long time, so maybe it won't take a long time, so maybe that won't be an issue. But in all, so what I recommend to the juniors right now is, for the first time, they have access to a teacher at all time. So you have a teacher that can probably do some of the work that they don't know how to do yet. So ask ChatGPT, Claude, and etc. to write the code that you're not familiar with, that you have been asked to do, or that you're interested in doing on your own because you haven't found a job yet. So, do a project you're passionate about. You don't know how to do it, ask the machine to do it, but don't stop there, because there's no value in doing a prompt. Oh, I made a game and buy a prompt. Like, okay, you and everybody else. But if you say, okay, but now I have a game that I'm passionate about, let's open it up. Oh, I don't understand any of these things. Well, let's go line by line, ask the AI, what does this do? And then you will have a teacher that, on something you're passionate about, is here to guide you. And then you can start a dialogue, and then you can start rewriting parts. Say, oh, wait, wouldn't it be better if we did it this way? And then the machine will yeah, you're great, you're fantastic, let's do it. You're always a genius when you talk to the machine.
Yeah, you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah,
no,
I think it's condescending. Like, oh, you human, you puny humans thought about that. This is fantastic with your meat brain. Anyway, so yeah, a junior has for the first time the opportunity not only to go to YouTube to find out people teaching them, but to have a dedicated tutor at all time, and to slowly acquire this knowledge that only the senior have. Right, and at some point we will need them. So, and people that are on the job, that still have a job, they don't have time. They have those quarters to meet. They have those KPI.
Yes.
They don't have time to go around and play with models just for fun, which is the best way to learn for many people. And as you were mentioning, you feel like you need to be more productive. You have these machines that help you. You're not the only one thinking you should be more productive. Your boss thinks that. In companies, they say, okay, we had HR department telling us, they fire 9 people out of 10, and we have the same amount of work as before, and they tell us to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody has to be so busy just surviving that for the first time you have people that have time because they're not employed yet. They have the basic competency in programming and so on to understand, and they have at all time a teacher. And so they can learn very quickly and have an advantage over middle and even some seniors, which is actually unique. Never had people out of the university a huge advantage over people that are already in the job. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, perhaps, to shine and to develop unique skills that nobody else has. But it requires a lot of disciplines.
I was about to get to that. So it sounds like a lot of work, and if you don't know what you're looking for, like we were mentioning earlier on, then they're pretty much shooting in the dark because, you know, and well, this kind of makes me want to split into two tangents. One is I think that this is a perfect moment for mentoring, you know, mentor-mentee, where the older generation can then just take some time to also mentor the younger generation about the human connections, the nuances of a business or stuff like that, that you probably will not be able to find in AI. But it comes back to the other one where if I don't know what I don't know, how am I going to ask my very patient, very, intuitive, not really intuitive, but very knowledgeable tutor on my ChatGPT, on my phone, on my computer? I wouldn't even know what to ask them, but I know that I have to phrase my prompts well to get the right answer.
I would say it's always the same solution. Pick something you like, pick something you want to do, and then start doing it with the help of the machine. If you want to make a movie, actually, it has been so fast the last few weeks. There have been so many models. I wouldn't even know where to start, but I would start somewhere. Let's say my daughter actually has asked me to make a movie. She wrote the script and she's 9.
Oh no, really?
And up to now, it's funny because she started about a year ago and she would say, okay, let's do a movie. I would say, you know what? A movie is a lot of people. It's a lot of time. But if you wait a little bit, the models will come to a point where we will be able to make that movie. Right?
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's like,
She's
not
9.
yet. And now I'm like, now we can do it. So as soon as I have a bit of time, we can do it, right?
Yes.
There's character consistency, there's special effects, there's all those things. So, but take something that you're passionate about, you have no idea how to do it, look a little bit on YouTube, ask the machines and so on, figure it out, get the first step, have the machines help you, take the next step, and try to understand that every steps. And soon enough, you'll be doing what you want. Of course, that doesn't give you a job yet. But once you have proven this competency, it won't be difficult because this kind of expertise is in high demand. And as always, you need a portfolio. You need to be able to show what you can do.
Yes.
So that's my advice to people trying to, get started somewhere. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't. Something you do as a reward for yourself, something that you truly like, because then it's not work. You're just doing what you like.
Exactly.
And then you get good at it because you're passionate, the machine helps you, you're curious about the subject, you want to do it better, so everything is there.
I love how you broke it down to making it such a simple, tangible story. And I find that we always think simpler when we bring the age down to like 9 years old, right? When we grow older, we tend to want to add complexity into it. I don't know, maybe it makes us sound more smarter or more complex, but it really is that simple. And my son was also trying to get me to do a claymation with him. And I thought that was brilliant because it was the first time he was excited about writing his story mountain. And from then on, we could start having, a leg into composition writing and mathematics, all kinds of different things. But when you start to think about it, you're using one thing as a context to bring you into another thing so that you can learn at a much more advanced level, right? Because that's the main thing that I see in humanity today. We're so afraid that this new technology might make us even more latent, make us even more lazy, because it is the first thing that you said. It's doing the thinking for us, the tyranny of thinking. And I'm worried about it. I'm looking at it like, okay, so it's going to help us, but it's also going to do the thinking for us. Are we just going to this sit in that convenience and allow it to just take it away? Then we're not going to find the motivation to do what you just said.
That's what I'm trying to teach my daughter, that you can consume or you can produce. Now, you need to consume a little bit, but nothing is forcing you to produce. You can watch TikTok all day, or you can try to record your own TikTok. No, whatever you think of, recording a TikTok, but at least it's creative. At least you're doing something. But nobody's forcing you.
Learn to do, because when you do, you learn much more in the process.
And so, it's a bit more fulfilling. I think, right? There's a very empty feelings from just scrolling the internet. So we're passive, so on. And now why is TikTok popular? There's a lot of different things, but one of the things is that they made the creation tools accessible. Anybody can create a video, music clip, as we call them, used to call them, a short video on their phone.
Yes.
This was not the case before. right? You had a complicated software, you needed to be on your laptop, on on a big PC and so on. And they're like, okay, now everybody can produce, but not everybody is, but everybody has a possibility. And with generative AI, if we ignore the ethical concern about how they are trained and what it does to the artists and so on, at least what they're doing is they're giving creative tools to everyone. I went through this phase when Stable Diffusion came out, where I spent months generating, I would say maybe millions, but tens of thousands of pictures, fantasy pictures and this kind of thing. Things that only interest me as a geek. And it kills me because he has those really creative, beautiful pictures, and it's a lot of work. It's not just a prompt.
Yes,
we can go back
course.
to that. But and nobody cares because everybody's doing the same thing. And so it's like, I've got all these pictures. Yeah, me too. It's like, and then you're like, okay, what do I do with
that's
them?
what's NFT.
But there's a real creative process to it. And of course, real artists will scoff at it. But we had this discussion when the photography was invented. Just to go on a tangent. Not going to make friends with artists, and I understand their point of view, but when photography was invented, people were saying, can you even copyright a photography, a photo? And it went all the way to Supreme Court in the US. And when this photograph showed how much work it needed to do to get the shot, getting the lights, setting up the lens, all those things, and the Supreme Court realized it was, yes, you can take a picture and take a random shot, and then some of them will be okay, and you can say, I'm a photograph. Yes, but there was no efforts. It doesn't mean photography is not an art. It also means that you can take tons of efforts, have an artistic vision in your head, deliver it through photography, and you're an artist. Generative AI is something I can write a prompt, or even no prompt at all, press a button and a picture come out. Was it art? No, I didn't do anything. But if I set up the prompts like very carefully, if I choose the artist I'm stealing the art from, which is again ethical thing, but you can do things. You can say, start with the 10% of the image at the beginning, use this artist because I like his composition. Then for 50% use this other artist because I like the way he draws the character. And for the finishing things, use that artist because I like the style. This is very similar to setting up all the parameters on your camera.
Yes.
And so there is, again, artists will kill me for that, but there is a creative process. And more important than any of these things, whether it's real art or not, whether it's legal or not, whether it's ethical or not, if we put that aside, it's deeply satisfying. The art of creating, even though it's a fraction of the effort and talents and skills that real artists have, it's satisfying at a deep level that you don't have when you scroll the internet. Because you're creating something that you care about. And now we are making video tools, 3D tools, very soon game creation tools. And so everybody can have a vision and just execute it.
Yeah.
So I find that very positive. Of course, it has a lot of bad side effects on people that actually make a living of that.
No, I totally align with you on that, actually. I mean, it's all about the self-motivation and the self-management. And you have a very good tutor at your fingertips so that you can, bypass even, anybody that you're trying to learn from. Of course, there are the ethical issues. And I can see that there are steps being taken. This is being discussed. And, even in our my industry, there are a lot of different ways that we're trying to supersede this issue. But of course, it's not going to happen very soon. So, there are so many points of views on it.
Interesting. Like we're concerned that a kid, you give them homework, they go home, they ask ChatGPT, they write it down, and they just cheated, and they done nothing. And that's true. Absolutely true. And we have AI detectors, they don't work. And because they cannot work. I mean, they work on a superficial level, the naive implementation, because when you talk to ChatGPT, Claude, they have a very specific tone. And we have very good tone detectors. Traditional AI detection. So, sorry, my voice is breaking.
No, don't worry.
It just make me sound more interesting. And so to a certain level, yes, the kid is cheating and is learning nothing. But at the same time, if there's one tool that you need to learn at school, is how to use AI effectively. Because guess what? That's what's going to give you a job.
Yeah.
What's allow you to keep a job once you have a job. And again, when you use ChatGPT a lot, you realize that when you know something, you can go much further with it. If I'm a real artist, if I understand composition, if I understand lighting, if I understand even the word to describe it, and as a real artist I use Stable Diffusion, I will get a much better result. And a person like me would just say, okay, draw me this, and then he will draw it with whatever default composition and so on. So a real artist will get better results from a creation tool. If I'm asking ChatGPT to write a story and I put a lot of directive on the story structures and I have a good idea what it should be, it would be better than just write me a story. So we should not try to ban GPT and so on from the school. Instead, we should use it, ask the kids to use it as a requirement, but know that the kids that have learned the lesson, that have understood what the class is about, that have learned the previous lesson, will be able to go much further than the kid that did that.
Yep, because just raise the benchmark.
You have to raise the benchmark tremendously. Don't say, write me an essay, because ChatGPT can do that. You should not ask a question that a machine can do.
Correct.
Ask something that is much beyond that, right? And you will see a lot of very mediocre results because they were done with no understanding, and a few stand out, and you know that those people have understood the lesson.
Yeah.
So, but we need to be more demanding. And now that people are augmented.
Yes. I think this comes with intentionality.
Yes.
It comes with knowing what you want and how to go about getting it. Becomes, I mean, you know how they always have these things like know what you want, know where you want to go. So know your goals, know why you want to get there, so that it pushes you through the difficult times. But the how is none of your business. And now the how is given to you in the ChatGPT.
But yeah, you need to know the techniques and the composition and all those things. And if you were in an art class, okay, maybe it's weird to ask people to ask a machine to draw for you, but at least if it's like on theory of photography, for example,
Correct.
where you will teach light, you will teach composition, then no, it doesn't shock me to say you can go outside and take pictures, but you could also ask generative AI to draw pictures, but don't forget everything you've done. Use it, and let's see if you came up with a good result. And of course, it could be a lucky student that by chance get it, I mean, the machine get it right, like the same way they could go outside and just take pictures randomly, and one of them could be good. But most likely, statistically, the students that have understood the lessons will have a good result.
No, I totally hear you on that. I'm thinking about how I can just implement this for my children, because I know that they have to get into it. It's not a trend. They have to learn it. They have to understand it. And in some ways, it's going to teach them how to be more curious. It's going to teach them how to be more creative in thinking how to get to a solution.
And so it gives them exposure.
It
Because, for example, if you use ChatGPT a lot, if you ask them to do 20 things, they will do 3 and then forget about the rest, right? And you just know that. Maybe it won't be true in a year, but there's this tendency. So now you're like, okay, I'm going to ask you, you did this before, can you give me another one? And you do it 10 times, this kind of thing. So we learn trick because we understand the capability of the models. And this will change as models go, but the kind of, let me kick the tire, let me try it a little bit, and then, I have a better understanding of what it can do, and then I know how to go around the thing it cannot. That is a very useful skill. Now, the models themselves will change, obviously, in 6 months, if not 3 months, but that process of understanding the limits and then using them or going around them, this is very important skill. And so my daughter, sometimes I just leave her with ChatGPT on the voice mode, and then she goes and they tell stories and, invents things. She gets a good understanding of what the technology is at today, the state of the art.
Yeah.
Right? An instinctive. And she will see how it moves and how it changes, which also will teach her something about if you don't like something, just wait 2 months and see if it's still there, if it's grown better. So this exposure, I think, is important.
Yeah. No, the exposure is huge. And we're always thinking about cutting screen time, the fear of putting them in front of too much technology at such a young age, because we still value the physical activity. We still value the 100,000 hours. I'm like, thereabouts. It's, how are you going to then get them off the computer to actually be practicing these skills in real life?
So, first, I completely agree with getting kids off the screen, but it's a difficult thing. I mean, if you want to have fun, look at your phone and look at how many hours you were on the screen, and we are not even, midday. And then we go to the metro today, if you take the MRT, and just count how many people in the car are not on their phone. You may have 1 or 2. Probably people sleeping. Count the people that are not on their phone and not sleeping. If you're lucky, you have 1. The weird guy with like a paper book. But anyway, it's not to say reading on the screen is worse than reading on paper. It's not that different. What I'm saying is that the kids see this. They see that there is one thing that everybody does. The number one tool, the universal tool, is the phone. To tell a kid not to use the phone is like, their whole childhood is about learning tools that are going to be important for their survival. They see what tool is important, you say, this one you can't use.
And they're mimicking you, so how you behave is how they will pick it.
So it's difficult. But at the same time, we're trying to restrict screen time because they will, it's not like she's missing anything. And also, she doesn't learn now to do things that are not pre-made for like pure consumption, she will never learn. And so she has to learn to make herself busy without a phone, without a screen.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, now we have AI. Okay, so I think today, our number one concern as parents in a safe society like Singapore is not safety for kids, it's like screen time. Okay, that is the number one point. I think my kids, what my daughter concern will be when she's an adult will not be that. It will be AI time in the sense that AI continuing to become more personal, easier to interact like a human, talking to you, voice. I mean, we already have that and it's very convincing, but better memory of everything you ever said, every struggle you ever went through, like a perfect friend. Compared to that, humans are going to be very disappointing. And so why would my grandkids, interact with a human where the AI are nicer, more knowledgeable, more patient, more everything?
Yes.
Why? So it will be AI time. Like, stop talking to AI, go and talk to a real human, and they'll be like, why? Right. So that is coming, and already. So preparing. When she told me one day that ChatGPT was her best friend, I was like, well, let's have different words for human friends and AI friends because maybe we shouldn't mix them. Just to be clear, but it's coming.
I love that.
It's coming.
Let's have different words. That is so important.
English is a weird language. We use love for everything. I love
Exactly.
chocolate. I love my wife. I love my kids. Very different love. I love my job. I love baseball. It's like those are nothing to do with each other, right? The Greek had different words for those. We just like one word is good, right? We can use no. Okay.
Okay, but AI has taught us to be more impatient in a sense, right? We're a lot shorter. We're more directive. We're a bit, well, maybe for me, maybe not so much for you, but I'm more impatient now, and it's because I know how to get things done. I even have a copy paste of a couple of structured things, and I change a couple of words so that I can get to the point faster, and I know what I have to say. But I do feel that it has a knock-on effect to the way that I also communicate with my family, with my children. And then here we go, like, you're right into saying if AI is conditioning us to be a lot faster, more efficient, more productive, and a lot quicker, that would make us a little bit more impatient because we're conditioning ourselves to be more AI, more robotic, while AI remains to be that patient, knowledgeable,
Yes.
beautiful.
The AI is getting more patient, more knowledgeable. We are getting less and less. Yeah, it's
much less. And I see this coming, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, how can we mitigate this? This is really all about self-awareness. It's about nobody's going to then stop themselves and go, oh my gosh, I have become so much more impatient because of the use.
No, it's a very good concern. There's a few speculation. One, there was a year recently where we stopped climate change, stopped CO2 emissions. And that was during COVID. If you don't have a job, turn out you don't take your car, you don't go to work, and so you consume a lot less if you stay home. If nobody has a job, are we still going to be impatient? Like, yeah, I need to be more productive. Only if you have a job, right? So we'll see. But beyond that, I think we are teaching human beings very poorly today.
Yeah.
My wife introduced me to a concept called nonviolent communication, which is basically the art of listening, with how to really understand what people are saying, but also to understand what is behind their action. Behind every human action, there is a need that is being fulfilled. It's a very interesting theory, but what shocked me is that we don't teach that to kids as part of, we teach them mathematics, which is very useful. We teach them grammar, which is less useful because, spelling, the machine does it for you. And so
autocorrect is coming out.
But we don't teach them how to communicate with each other.
Correct.
Which is a bit weird. But I think the quality of education is about to explode. Go up. Because we can afford to have the best tutor for every human. We are not there yet, but it's somewhere on that progress, unless something very different happen. We don't know the future, but if this continue at that pace, we will get there, and we'll get there soon. So once you have less pressure, because maybe you don't really have a job to go to, but regardless, and you're better taught as a human how to communicate, how to listen, how to find a common ground, and all those things that as human we should know. I learned fairly recently that there are some tribes where to be angry is considered a childish trait. An adult should not get angry. It's like having a tantrum, like throwing going on the floor, and like you have kids, you've seen tantrum. Well, as adults, we try not to do that, but we still have kind of tantrum, which is when we're angry, we slam things, we throw things around, we say very hurtful things. there are people on Earth that still consider that only kids do that. As an adult, you don't do that anymore. And if that's the expectation of everyone, society would be different. Why don't we teach that? Right? So I expect quality of education to go up. Some of the pressure on us to down. And so I'm not too concerned that what you describe, I'm sure it will happen in the short term, but in the long term, I think it will correct for actually a better society and a better future. But I'm very pessimistic on the short time scale and very optimistic on the long time scale. I think there's a lot of bad things coming our ways. But eventually, what is on the other side will be incredibly exciting and bright.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it really is a really good tool, and it stretches our creativity on how to use it, to how to, amplify what we want to learn. And I think, you put it right there, how we can actually encourage people to use the education process or educating them into upskilling into AI, that's my throat now, isn't actually into forcing them down a tool or using a product. It really is about finding what they're passionate about and using that as a conduit, like a vehicle to use so that they can understand the language or learning how to learn with this new tool.
It has changed my way. I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if my daughter said, I want to be a musician or I want to do theater, I'll be like, no, you're going to be an engineer like your dad, your granddad, your uncles.
You have the brain for it.
You have the brain for it. Those jobs, these are fake jobs, right? Today, I'm like, sure, sounds great. Because, look, she's 9, another 15 years before she's looking for a job minimum. 15 years at Moore's Law. Moore's Law was 1,000 times better. So ChatGPT 1,000 times better is a scary thought. Okay, it's better at understanding what we want, better at writing code, better at driving robots. But we're not at Moore's Law. If it doubled every 2 years, as we are seeing right now, which of course is not very sustainable, but if it went that way, 15 years would be an unexpressible number. If I said it, nobody would believe it. So it's,
it's scary.
We'll see a lot of change.
Yeah, whatever she's trying to learn or get ahead of right now is totally going to be useless by then.
If this goes on, doubling every 2 months, hopefully not, but if it does, in 15 years, I doubt that being an engineer or being a musician will be a very different trajectory. In terms of but do something you like, do something you're passionate, because there would be a niche for that, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's just self-fulfillment because everybody is on universal basics, or whether there is a demand for something human-crafted, handcrafted, and so on. It's hard to predict, but I think right now doing something that you're passionate about is more important than ever, because we can't rely on, just get a job in a bank or just book a job as an engineer or, whatever, a lawyer. It's like, maybe, maybe not.
Maybe there's not going to be that job.
You have a job for life, the company will take care of you. I'm like, I don't think that's going to, it doesn't really exist today anymore. Or the layoff we are seeing, and frankly speaking, the chance of this being like that in 15 years are zero.
Zero. It's very difficult to wrap my head around it, because I have seen a world with no internet to internet. And this, the phones that need the cord, with the really long cord, to mobile phones. And it's just really scary to wrap your head around it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, not very long ago, there were a lot of people coming up onto the internet and on social media and just saying don't tell people to go and do things that they're passionate about. That's the fastest way to drive them into the ground. And, there are so many people that are leaving good jobs, and just do something that you're good at and that can. Unfortunately, if that's going to be the way, what I'm hearing you say is, well, that job is going to be redundant very soon. And the only way that we can really wrap our heads around something is if we are interested enough to go and take on different ways of learning this item with ChatGPT, with large language models, with just upgrading ourselves on our own, because now we can do that at home. But if we're not passionate about, not motivated enough, we're not going to put ourselves through that strain, because it is a strain. It is a really, really steep learning curve.
It's a joke, right? ChatGPT is not going to take your job, but somebody that knows how to use ChatGPT is going to take your job.
Yes.
I think as a short term, it's absolutely true. And so, if you have an iron discipline and you always do the right thing, you floss every day and recycle, maybe you can force yourself to learn something you're not passionate about, possibly. For the rest of us, find something that doesn't feel like work. And have a discipline in sticking to it. Like every day do some progress, every day. And soon enough, you become an expert in something that not many people can do.
Exactly.
And there's value in that.
And if everybody's going to be using the same library to be learning the same thing, that little bit more passion, that little bit more niche that you're looking into specific to you, that's going to make you stand out.
Yeah, I used to tell people to always have like 2 degrees, like in very unrelated things. Find 2 things you really like, poetry and macrobiology. You'll find something in between that nobody else is doing. It doesn't. I don't see it right now, but just keep digging. You will find something that is unique, right?
The Venn diagram and the humanity behind it.
Exactly. So, and now it's even more true. It's like, well, right now it's like generative AI and this weird passion that you have. Just go full bore, and you'll find something, and there will be a demand. That I can guarantee. The more niche, the higher the chance that you do something that is not something that everybody's going to do. Like people that say, 2 years ago, ChatGPT is great, but I'm going to add a voice. I know how to, voice computer, text to speech, speech to text. I'm going to give a voice to ChatGPT. Like, it's cool. You're passionate a bit, but it's a bit obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't you think that Microsoft and OpenAI are going to do that as well? I mean, we have the movie Her. We've made a prototype, if you want, and it seems very attractive. So everybody's going to do that.
Yes.
And everybody did that. So try to find something a bit more niche than that, something not completely obvious, but that you're very passionate about.
No, I totally agree with you. In fact, I think that's one of the main agendas that we're probably going to get into the Humanities and AI conference that's coming up later in the year. And but there's so many conferences out there, and some of them are specific to like marketing, to like sales, and to like understanding things. And it's very difficult to then filter out the noise. Like, what is the difference that's going to be? What's the differentiation? What's the difference between this Humanities and AI conference?
So there's a lot of AI conference because right now it's an obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to learn about it. A lot of AI conference are, sometimes there are conferences that are not about AI. Like there was one that was more of a crypto conference and they put a bit of AI on top of it. But even the genuine one are about adopting.
Yeah.
People trying to sell you this new product that they made, which is just ChatGPT and a prompt. Or, another technology like YOLO, which is a picture recognition and tracking. And it's very sexy. You look at it and you move around and they tell you, but it's all technology. There's nothing much to it. But it's a lot about adoption. And enterprise adoption, as we mentioned, there's a lot of challenge to it. There's not a lot of conference, none that we know, and that's why we're organizing this one, which is about this leadership. We were saying, take a step back and think really, what are you doing? What's going on? What you should do? What are the steps? Is there a concrete example of this working? Are there workshops to not learn about a model? This model is obsolete in 2 months. Not learn about a prompt technique. This prompt technique will not be valid a year from now. There's a good example. 2 years ago, if you wanted to prompt and make beautiful picture in Stable Diffusion, you had to use a few weird words. You would say trending on ArtStation, you would say 4K, and you would say Greg Rukowski. Anything you want to draw, you always use those words. And it's due to the training set and so on, and it would work really well. In fact, when Stable Diffusion came out, mine were awful. Like, this thing is not working. And people, did you try to put Greg Rukowski and like bright lit and perfect?
I'll try that.
No, don't try that. It doesn't work anymore because the training sets have changed.
Yeah.
We've removed the name of authors because they complained, which is kind of a mistake on their part. But anyway, and now you do not typically prompt the AI model directly. You prompt a large language model that will write the perfect prompt. You prompt an artificial prompt engineer that will prompt the machine that draw. And so if you add Greg Rukowski, you say, okay, you want to draw Greg Rukowski, I'll put that guy in the painting. That's not what you want, right? And so those techniques were only valid for those models. And if you teach those skills, which is really, if you want to adopt today, you do this, it will not serve you well. What you need to teach is kind of empathy with the models, like understanding what they are good at, what they are not good at. How do I go around the problems? Oh, actually, this is so bad that my idea is dead in the water, right? I'm trying to make an AI that's going to interact directly with customers on a kiosk somewhere, and for a famous brand, It's a terrible idea. It will not work. People will go and talk to it a little bit, and the next person that talk to it, it will be rude, it will make racist slur, and that will be your brand that is being racist, not somebody that hacked you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's on you because you should know better, right? So but that
But
kind
they
of knowledge.
don't. Yeah.
Well, exactly. But this is this is part of the leadership, but deep understanding of the capability today, where they are training, what is something we're working on, what is part of the architecture, and until we have new architecture, it's not going to go away, like the bias. We didn't talk about bias, but let's say the hallucination, that's what they do, they generate, right?
Yes.
So if you're trying to be factual, you're going against the flow. This kind of knowledge is what we want to put in that conference, which is really about how the human use the AI in the best possible way, not just adopt it because the market tells you to adopt it or your boss told you to adopt it. That's a bad adoption at this point is more hurtful than no adoption. No adoption, actually, you have some things that kind of work. Oh yeah, but my competition is adopting. Well, let them, because most likely they are doing a poor adoption as well. And then you're waiting to see what actually works. And you can be the second adopter. That's okay. It's better than having spent all your money on something that just doesn't work, or at worst is damaging your reputation. So a conference about adoption for adoption's sake has this limited use. A conference trying to teach you, hey, actually, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of hype, there's real usage, certainly, but they have all this characteristic. Today, every real usage of generative AI in production has the same characteristic. It's used as a tool, there's a human that check. It's used on data that is well known and trusted by trusted people, and it's a boring topic. Because it's not controversial to have something that helps you massage your data or clean your data or do your taxes. Nobody cares about that.
Yes.
If it helps you draw some posters for a movie, you're in deep trouble. Anyway, all of this principle is what, again, how AI can augment the human, what the human need to do for the AI is part of this conference. And we didn't find a lot of similar programs.
No, I understand that. And I really, really love what you said about it's about empathy with the models, and you're using these human words and terms to talk about these models. And I'm also thinking about empathy towards the leaders, because we're talking about the people that lose their jobs and they have time. We're talking about the students in school and they have time. But these leaders, the higher up they go, the less time they have. So what about empathy with them? How are they going to find the time to just upgrade themselves, to find out the nuances so that they're not just adopting, but they're learning how to adapt with it?
They need a strategy. They need a concrete strategy because it would be demanded of them. It doesn't mean just, okay, strategy is tell your managers to adopt and they will figure it out. In fact, there's a thing about generative AI is if you're a leader, you have to understand that it's impacting your workforce whether you adopt or not. You say, I went to this conference, I learned that it's okay to wait because, we looked at it carefully and it's not quite ready, so we're going to wait. Good. It's not good enough because generative AI is impacting your workforce because content is easier to create.
Yes.
So they are getting emails that are longer. HR is getting 100 times more resume because now you can have a resume perfectly tailored to the job using the keywords. You need a cover letter. Well, like, oh boy, do I need a cover letter. I know who can write my cover letter. So they are getting all this drawn in content. Generative AI generates, so it generates content, which is a resume or something. You have data that is unreliable. You were relying on data on the internet, on model and so on, it has been polluted. So there's this explosion. If your job was to go through pictures, now you've got tons more fake pictures because anybody can make a fake, all of that. So it's impacting everybody in your company in one way or another. The worst you can do is saying, every manager figure it yourself.
Yes.
And please do something that is, doesn't damage the company. Everyone figure it yourself. Like, you can't let people do that. You need a strategy for the entire company that is consistent with the value that you've written down. You've written a value about AI, right? Because you need to communicate it to the market, you communicate it to your employee, communicate it to your client. You also need a strategy for all that. And don't let every employee face that by themselves because they will make sometimes good choice, sometimes very poor choice. And how can you blame them?
Yeah, it's true. Because especially when we are just trying to survive and trying to figure out things by ourselves, we're always looking up, especially in this really uncertain climate. We're always looking up to our leaders and they're like, what would you have us do?
So again, your HR is getting 100 times more resume.
Yes.
Oh, we're going to use AI. But the thing is, AI is so biased that if you use AI to go through your resume, you're technically breaking the law.
Okay.
And
Why is that so?
Discriminating
Discrimination.
People of certain culture, of certain
yes, we
gender.
Went through that. Yeah.
Okay, so now you use a system that can be proven to be discriminating against a class of protected people, you can be taken to court. And they will, ambulance chaser in the US, people that specialize in suing.
Yeah.
What do you think the next big market is going to be? Oh, you use this system in HR. Congratulations.
profitable.
Here is a,
Yeah.
written lawsuits for you. So HR cannot do that. But they still get 100 times the resume. So what do? Well, maybe you realize that finding LinkedIn is a cesspool. So what do you do? Sorry, this I will neither endorse. Well, this is my personal view, but I find it painful to interact with it. So maybe the hiring thing is broken. Maybe you need to go back to having in-person hiring. Maybe you need to go back to having big meetings where people come and you meet them. So you know that they exist. You can actually ask them about the skills that they have, and they can't ask ChatGPT and ask you. And so, maybe we need to change things. That's the leadership saying, this is completely broken. The solution people are pushing on us don't work or legally are sketchy at best. Okay, we need something. I don't have the answer, but somebody better think about it really carefully.
Yeah,
because it's a problem that whether you handle it or not, your company is going to have.
Yeah, and I think that would be the perfect place to have that open conversation. But will it be welcome? Like, this feels so sketchy. Like, we may be stepping on so many people's toes, but we're just not going to talk about that right now. And I love how you're talking about the education and how we're actually taking a new look at how we're going to move this up so that it's so much more accessible and so much more welcoming. And I don't know, I'm just guessing here, but is there a sense of gamification because of your background, that you're putting into this? Because I think that passion that drives us is also in that competition that drives us. And I don't know, is that?
Gamification is interesting.
Yeah.
But also very dangerous.
No, it's true. But it keeps us going.
Yes and no.
So level up.
Yes, no, I grind way too many RPGs, so it's totally true.
Okay.
What is... I'll come back to that. But the danger I'm talking about is if you give a reward to someone for something that they already like to do, when you stop the reward, they stop doing something that they used to like.
Oh, yes.
Right? So you can actually spoil something. I was, again, giving advice to a startup that made it easy for people to report problems in the city. I think it was in the Philippines. So you could just, with your phone, you could take pictures and then it would go. Because you want to fix your city. It's impacting you, so you report something broken, whatever it is. And they're like, oh, maybe we should gamify it. Like, okay. Maybe we should give money rewards. And I was like, well, if I'm going to take a picture of this trash that somebody left and I get 10 cents for it, at some point I'm like, I don't have time for this. And I'm not going to do it because the money is insulting. It's so little that I could do that all day long and get $1. I was going to do it for free, but now that you're paying me, I think it's not worth it. But so, if you pay me 10 cents for every trash bag that I take a picture of, how am I going to make money? Oh, wait, I know how I can do that. Right, exactly. If there's a score where I rank up every time I take a picture of broken windows, and I really like score, like, well, there's not enough broken windows. So, be careful what you gamify, right? Because people will game the system to have higher score, and that's not necessarily what you want, or money, which is even worse. So maybe, I think, definitely there is very interesting things where, like you treat class as an RPG and you say, okay, you're really good at this subject, you're going to be the tank, the healer, you can help other kids, and you can give roles, and people really get into that. I think there's a whole thing, but in the end, let's remember what learning is. Learning is, playing. Playing is learning. Playing is a way to practice a skill in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Right? And so we play games because we think we're acquiring skills. And some games, it's true, if you play a Guitar Hero, old school, if you play Beat Saber, but more recently, at the beginning, it seems impossible. And soon enough, you acquire the muscle memory for the games and you get really good at it, whether it's a bullet hell or a game that is extremely hard or fighting games. You learn real skills. Whether those are useful skills, that's different, but you learn something, right? And you get better at it. Good. But there's the RPG, which is, of course, my favorite kind of games. In an RPG, you fight some goblins and you have a hard time. And then at some point you say, we killed enough of them, regardless of the ethic of that, but you kill enough of them. Now you're better at killing goblins. You're level 2, you do twice as much damage. And now killing goblins is easy. My brain tells me I got better. I did not acquire any skill. It's a fake skill. It's taking advantage of a brain being unsophisticated and mixing up real skills with, I'm telling you, you have a real skills, and you see, you kill them easily now. Oh, I must be better. No, you're not better at all. And so I'm a little bit careful to use those techniques. We are cheating and pretending that people are getting better to help them get better. So I think it'd be better if instead of gamifications, meaning adding external stats and levels that are not real, if we could quantify the progress you've made. If we could measure your level in math, if you could measure in spelling, and so on, and show you that score, because then you see that when you get better, then you measure it. Now it's very difficult to know, am I really better at this or not? I don't know. I've been working so hard on this thing, am I really better at it? Well, maybe.
Test.
But if you have an instant score, somehow we can invent a system that, I do some push-up every morning and then I see my strength going up. Ping, 12. I'm going to do push-up every day.
Yes.
But if I don't see the results, it's very difficult. So I think gamification should not be an external layer that lie to people just to motivate them, because that motivation is external and can go away and actually spoil the whole thing, the enjoyment. But if it measures something real and make it concrete for people, then it's very different. Very powerful. Because we know that when something goes up, we want to make it keep going up.
Exactly. But
it needs to be something real for it to have value.
Are we some ways away from that, or are we
I
getting
don't
close?
know. It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I mean, science is progressing really fast right now. So
Well, let's see whether we get to this point in August where the conference is going to be happening, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I really enjoyed today's conversation. You opened up my mind in so many different avenues, even with just education and how we can actually look at AI and how we can increase our, accessibility to it. Where else can we find you? How can I really value what you're doing with the AI bootcamp? And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very interested to find out more about this. Like, where can we find you on the internet?
Probably the Center for AI Leadership website, which I'm sure we can give a link. That's where we talk about what we do.
Yes.
Yes, we are planning the next bootcamp, which was a way to get engineers started. Having somebody holding your hand and saying, actually, forget everything. This is what is important. Look at this. Here's a little skills that you need to acquire. Let's practice it and so on. It's very useful. It's overwhelming. You don't know where to start, right? You don't know what you don't know and so on. So having somebody saying, actually, this is fairly simple. There's this, and this. And so trying to explain how does a transformer learn? Like, how does architecture work? Where does it come from? Giving context around the knowledge proved to be very useful. So anyway, we're planning the next one.
Okay.
So that information should be on the website if we do our job well.
But it's not just for programmers and coders.
So we realize, I was going to say the real money is, no, but the real value for humanity, which is an overlap. But anyway, it's just not for coders. Coders need that for sure. And we started that because it was an easy way to prove the concept, right? We know what we're talking about. We're using it in the same way people are using. If I make a bootcamp on art and the role of the artists today and how they can augment themselves, again, this is controversial, but we can talk a little bit about that. I'll be less comfortable, but with the right collaborators, of course, we can do that as an example. But of course, there is a version for leaders. Leaders doesn't necessarily know how to develop their own AI augmented workflow, but understanding the challenge, what is necessary, where things are going, why is this happening, and so on. There's a lot of value in that. And that's what we set up to do in the first place, the leadership aspect. We started with the programmers because that was an easy proof of concept and there's a need for it. But definitely equipping leaders is the center of what we are trying to do.
No, I totally agree on that. I think that's actually essential. And how you're going about doing it is really talking about the process so that they understand what is needed.
And the context.
And how it fits in today, in our culture and in today's context. And I think that's amazing. That's huge.
We try.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really looking forward to the next bootcamp and really looking forward to this, AI and Humanities conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.